What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Locked in Sports. It's time, it is finally time to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time on the channel now. In fact, one of the main reasons I started this channel was to talk about fantasy football. That's right, the NBA season is over. Celtics won the championship. Draft happened. There's a lot of basketball stuff going on that I'll talk about in a different video. But for now, really excited to start talking about the NFL, start talking about fantasy football. I know NFL season is still a bit of a ways away. Doesn't start till September 7th. So you might not be doing your fantasy drafts yet. You might be waiting till August, maybe even September to do them. And if that's the case, well, either watch this video and remember everything or save it, bookmark it, subscribe to the channel so you can come back later and rewatch the video and remember some really, really good underrated players in this year's fantasy draft. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the guys that I think are the most underrated players in the league. Guys who are just being drafted really late in fantasy drafts, or being drafted, below the value they provide, being drafted around guys who I think they provide a lot more value than, or just have a lot of upside that I don't think is being talked about nearly enough. And I do a lot of fantasy drafts, trust me. One of my favorite hobbies, one of my favorite things to do. I do a lot of fantasy drafts. I do a lot of research for them. I look at what coaches say. I look at what's coming out from mini camps and practices. I look at what's just going to make sense versus team composition, who has a good chance to thrive and who doesn't. So I think I'm bringing some really important information here that you guys can value from in your own leagues, help your teams out, beat your friends, beat your opponents, whoever you're doing fantasy drafts against. All right. So, how am I going to talk about these guys? Well, I think it's really boring to just list off a bunch of names. We all like fantasy drafts. We all like, making fantasy teams. So, why not do that here? I want to make a fantasy team with the most underrated players in the league. I'm going to be making it with my favorite fantasy team structure, which is one quarterback, two running backs, three wide receivers, one tight end, and one flex player that can be any position other than quarterback. So a running back, wide receiver, or tight end. All right. And what counts as an underrated player, in my opinion? It's someone who, like I said, doesn't have or has a lot more value than the people being drafted around them. But I also want to make sure that I'm really targeting underrated players. So I'm looking at late round picks. I'm assuming a lot of us are doing 12-person drafts. So I'm not taking any player who would be considered a starter. So not taking from the top 12 quarterbacks, the top 24 running backs, the top 36 wide receivers, or the top 12 tight ends. And my flex player is going to be someone from way down in the draft, uh, a late round pick who I think has a lot of value. And of course, I'm looking for players with the best value here. So I'm not just going to be taking, quarterback number 13, running back number 25 and 26. I'm looking at guys who are being drafted further down. The further down they are, the more likely I am to put them in this video or to mention them. I like guys who are good, who are better than the guys around them because that's good value. You're not just getting to draft the top guys in all your fantasy drafts. You got to look for diamonds in the rough. You got to look for gems in those deep rounds. That's what I'm trying to bring here. All right. So I've been yapping a lot to start this video off. So let's hop into what I think is the most underrated fantasy team you could possibly make in this year's draft. Let's go. Let's start out with talking about the head of our fantasy team here, the most important position, arguably, quarterback. Now, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in the league this year, and I think most of them are being drafted at where they deserve to be drafted at. But there's quite a few guys that I think are pretty underrated and provide a lot more value than is being talked about. But before I talk about the person I selected for this fantasy team, who I think the most underrated quarterback in the league is, from a fantasy perspective, gotta give you guys some honorable mentions. You're not gonna get your guy in every fantasy draft, so I want to leave you all with quite a few options for players that I think are great pickups if you can grab them. So some underrated quarterbacks. Well, Kirk Cousins and Justin Herbert are two that have a lot of upside. They could just have breakout years. Well, Kirk Cousins didn't really get a breakout year. but he's just in an iffy offense. So we could, flop. He could be great. Justin Herbert does need a bit of a breakout year. He's a great quarterback. We know that. But he's been in an iffy offense. It's the Chargers. They've been up and down. He hasn't really proven himself as a star yet. So I think that's another guy that, could do great, could not. Depends on how a lot of these young receivers turn out. So if I'm not looking at them, who am I looking at? Well, I almost took Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford, great quarterback, has one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL with Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp, who's going to be fully healthy, and Demarcus Robinson, who really had a strong showing at the end of last season. I think Stafford is in a great place to do really, really well, but he doesn't have the rushing upside that other quarterbacks have. So didn't want to take him here, but he's a solid, consistent pickup that you could take in the later round. I know I definitely am. Someone I almost took, my number two most underrated quarterback, it's Baker Mayfield. He's getting drafted at QB 22, average draft pick 169. He had 284 fantasy points last year in a really, really strong breakout year. And I know Baker Mayfield really wasn't all that until last year, but he just re-signed with the Bucks for a lot of money. So the Bucks clearly want him to be their main guy moving into the future. He's got Mike Evans, he's got Chris Godwin, he's got Rashad White, and I believe they picked up another rookie whose name I'm blanking on right now, but that's a third possible, major target for Mayfield to be looking at in a really good offense. Not the best offense in the league, but a solid offense for a solid quarterback who's getting drafted at QB 22. I think is way too low for Mayfield. I think he has a really high ceiling, possibly above 300 fantasy points. And when have a guy like Mike Evans on your team who's just a consistent workhorse, I don't think Mayfield's floor is that low because Evans will always be there to provide value. Godwin is solid, and Rashad White as well really had a strong showing last season. And I think Baker Mayfield has a low floor, or a high floor, sorry, and an even higher ceiling. So I like him. But there's one guy I like more. It's my pick for the most underrated quarterback, the guy I'm taking for this team, and it's Jared Goff. Goff is just a monster. He's getting drafted right now at QB 16, way too low. Average draft pick 127, way too low. And he had 303 fantasy points last year. Great spot. He has a really strong offense. It's the Lions. They got Jameer Gibbs. They got David Montgomery, and they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, as well as quite a few other receivers who haven't taken that leap yet to stardom. They don't really have a solid wide receiver too, but I've got a lot of faith that their team, that Dan Campbell has someone brought up to be that wide receiver two role, that someone steps up and really turns the Lions offense into just a powerhouse offense that's fun to watch and just is really productive. I like Jared Goff a lot. I think he's got a lot of upside. And I know I've heard people online saying that, well, that was his ceiling last season. That Goff hit his ceiling last season. He can't possibly do better. He's just going down from here. I don't agree with that. I think going into next year, I think the Lions just get better. I think that 300 fantasy points is Goff's floor. And that is an amazing floor to be at for a quarterback, especially one being drafted so low. So the most underrated quarterback in fantasy drafts this year, Jared Goff, easily taking him for our team here. Next up, I'm going to be talking about the workhorses of every NFL team, of a position that is really, really important. We saw that last year with Christian McCaffrey doing everything that he did and being the absolute star and just soul of every fantasy team that had him. We're talking about running backs, one of the most important positions, at least in my opinion, especially because it is really hard to find a good late round running back. Man, a lot of my drafts this year, I've been spending some premium picks on premium running backs because it feels like once you're past running back 30, maybe even past running back, especially past running back 35 or 40, there is no one good back there. There's no one with any upside, no one that I think could be consistent. So finding these players is pretty hard, but I got two main guys and four honorable mentions that I feel really solid in as good late round picks, probably the only late round running backs that I would consider taking. So who do I have? Well, starting off with honorable mentions, run through them quickly. I got Javonte Williams, running back from Denver. Solid last year, he'll be solid this year. Good workhorse. They got a rookie quarterback. I see a lot of work going to Javonte. Like him a lot. Got Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah, I know. It's Ezekiel Elliott. He's old. He's not the best running back in the league. But it's the Cowboys. I anticipate them just kind of running him into the ground over and over again, just giving him a lot of volume. I see Zeke getting a lot of value just from the pure volume that he will have on his team. Kamani Vidal, he's a rookie going to the Chargers. I'll talk more about the Chargers in a second and their running back room, but I like him a lot. He's a rookie. He's going to run first offense. And lastly, Chuba Hubbard, the returning running back for the Carolina Panthers. I know that they have a rookie for next year, but I don't see that rookie kind of being the main guy at the start of the season. I think Chuba Hubbard will have that role for at least a little bit before he gets stolen away from him. He's a consistent guy. Even when he's running back two, he'll be out there. He'll get points. He's not going to be a star. He's not going to be in a top 20, probably even top 30 running back. But he's a consistent guy you can grab late round just for someone who will do something for your team. You know, he'll be a good one to fall back on if someone gets hurt or if you need him to step up. But who are the two running backs that I feel most confident in? Guys that I really like taking for great value. The two most underrated running backs in the league. First off, one of my favorite players in the league, it's Zach Moss. Man, Zach Moss is getting drafted at running back 27, criminal. Average draft pick 93, criminal. And he had 156 fantasy points last year as a backup running back. He was a number two behind Jonathan Taylor. It was not a 1A, 1B situation. He was a distant two. But in the 5 weeks that he got to start, I believe it was 5 weeks where Jonathan Taylor was out, 5 weeks where Zach Moss started, man, was he a monster. If I remember correctly, he was scoring about 20 fantasy points a week. 20 a week is wild. That is Pro Bowl numbers. That is easily Pro Bowl numbers. Now you're telling me he gets to go to Cincinnati? He gets to go to a good offense where he gets to be the main guy? Are you kidding me? If he's putting up 20 fantasy points a week with the Colts, which is, I like the Colts, but hey, it's a worse offense than Cincinnati, especially with a healthy Joe Burrow, healthy T. Higgins, Jamar Chase looking good. Come on. You put Zach Moss in Cincinnati, he's going to be a monster. I see him, averaging anywhere from 16 to 18 fantasy points a week. I see him keeping up what he did last year. That man has a lot to prove. He's been a backup for a long time. He finally gets to prove himself and be a starter, and then immediately gets traded. Nah, this man is, or sorry, I'm not sure if he got traded or if he signed with them because his contract ended. Unsure, but point is, man, he's gonna be a monster at Cincinnati. I got the utmost faith in this guy. I think he's a top 10 running back next year without a doubt. And next up, Gus Edwards. Yeah, we got controversial feelings about Gus Edwards. It's a mixed basket for him. I get it. And the main complaint I hear people say is, oh, Gus Edwards doesn't catch. He just runs. He doesn't catch. But he's a run first offense. That's all I need him to do. I just want him to run because he's with Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Harbaugh is going to run that man every single possession. I see Gus Edwards having at least, I see him running first down. I see him running second down, third down. I see him just running a lot in that offense and getting tons of value because of it. I don't need him to catch a ton of passes. I just need him to run himself every single game, and I see him doing that. He's running back number 36 right now, which is crazy low for the amount of value he has. Average draft pick 120 when he had 181 fantasy points last year. There are so many running backs that did worse last year that are getting drafted above him. And then you take into account that Gus Edwards is going to a better offense? Or sorry, not a better offense, but an offense better suited for him, a run first offense. This is wild to me how low Gus Edwards is getting drafted. He is by far, I think he may be the most underrated player this year. I'm taking him as often as I can. I don't expect him to be a top 10 running back. I think he'll be a top 20. I think he'll be there just because of the pure value he provides. He's going to just be consistent every single week. He's going to be ran every single game. I love where he is. To run first offense, his only competition is Kamani Vidal, who, like I said, I do like, but I think there's a chance he steals the number one spot. I don't really see it happening. Not this year. I think Gus Edwards just takes it. J.K. Dobbins not providing any competition. Yeah, it's running back by committee, but Gus Edwards is the clear number one here in an offense who's really going to value how much he runs. So easily securing the top two most underrated running backs in the league, Zach Moss and Gus Edwards. Feel confident about him, like him a lot. Yeah. Next up, we're talking about easily the most stacked position in the NFL, a position with just tons of underrated guys that I could choose from. And chose three. three wide receivers that I really like, that I think are criminally underrated, that will just provide a lot more value than where they're getting drafted at. And I got a lot of honorable mentions to talk about first. Got a ton of them. Don't want to spend too long on it. Don't want to waste you guys' time, but there's so many guys here that I like a lot. So to run through them quickly, honorable mentions. We got Lad McConkey. Chargers could step up with Justin Herbert. A lot of upside there. Quentin Johnston returning into his second year. I mean, his team said they expect a big leap for Quentin Johnston. I think he could really have a good, big, solid role in this offense. Keon Coleman, I mean, come on. It's Keon Coleman playing with Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he's likely to be the lead receiver. Huge upside on this guy. Khalil Shakir, the only starting wide receiver for the Bills under Josh Allen. Huge upside. Jaden Reed. I'd say he's underrated. He's still getting drafted in that top 36, but I think he's still underrated. He was the lead uh, wide receiver for the Packers last year. Under Jordan Love, come on. And Jordan Love, like I talked about earlier, guy I like a lot. I think he's only going up from here. To his lead receiver to be being drafted so low, he's in the about wide receiver 34 right now, so couldn't quite include him in my main three, but so underrated. Like him so much. And he's got a few guys that for late round picks, I like him a lot. I think they got a lot of upside, but they're a bit iffy. Got Jalen Polk. We'll see what he does, with Drake May. Depends a lot on Drake May. Jahan Dotson. See what he does with Jane Daniels, see what he does with the Commanders. Demario Douglas. See what he does with Drake May. And Adam Thielen, who the Carolina wide receiver room improved a lot, but Thielen is likely to still be the main slot receiver. He had a good connection last year with Bryce Young. So I know Bryce Young is not the best quarterback. Carolina's bit of a miserable offense. But Adam Thielen, even if he's not the main guy, he's still going to be the main slot receiver. He's still the main guy there that has a connection with Bryce Young. So I think he just provides a lot of value. And those are all guys that are getting drafted so late that have so much value, so much upside, that could really just have breakout years. That's really what I'm looking for in a lot of late round wide receiver picks, is guys who I think could just break out and become wide receiver one, wide receiver twos on their team. And I like those guys, like all the guys I mentioned, a lot to fulfill that role. But the three most underrated wide receivers by far in the league for fantasy football. Starting off, Cortland Sutton. Are you kidding me? He's wide receiver 49? 49 for Cortland Sutton. Average draft pick 92. He had 160 fantasy points last year when he was, it was a 1A, 1B situation with him and Jerry Jeudy. But if you watch those games, man, Cortland Sutton was a monster. If you watch a Denver Broncos highlight reel from last season, every single play is Cortland Sutton. His catches were insane. What he was doing was wild. I don't think that should have been a 1A, 1B, offense. I think Cortland Sutton should have been the number one receiver without a doubt. Sutton is insane. Sutton's going to be great. Wide receiver 49 is so low. He's only low because people are iffy about Bo Nix. I think even if Bo Nix isn't, an all-star, even if he isn't a pro bowler, he at least provides really good value for Cortland Sutton. I mean, Cortland Sutton is the main guy in that offense. He's shown to have the hands to catch some pretty insane passes. I think him and Bo Nix will have a great connection. I think Cortland Sutton does not deserve to be wide receiver 49. He has a lot of upside. I like him a lot. I was shocked seeing how low he was drafted. Next up, Darnell Mooney from the Atlanta Falcons. Wide receiver 68. Wild. Average draft pick 147. He had 63 fantasy points last year. I know he didn't have a great season last year. But now he has Kirk Cousins. That's a huge step up from Desmond Ridder in the quarterback department. Are you kidding me? I know Kirk Cousins, he's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's good. He is solid. He is such a solid quarterback. And we have so much faith in Drake London. I see Drake London getting drafted. I believe he's wide receiver 10 right now. He's getting drafted so highly. People have so much faith in Drake London. And that doesn't extend to Darnell Mooney, and that doesn't make sense at all. When the Falcons have come out and said Darnell Mooney's locked in for a key role, when the team itself has endorsed him, when they've said, we expect to see him and Kirk have a great connection this year, to see Darnell Mooney getting drafted at pick 147 is criminally low. He's getting drafted below some wide receiver threes, which is wild. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I'm just genuinely shocked by how low these guys are getting drafted. I think Darnell Mooney provides some of the best value in the draft. I like him a lot. Easily taking him every time I get my hands on him. He had 63 fantasy points last year. I think he easily has at least doubles that this year. I think he at least has 126 this year, which is way more value than where he's being drafted at. And lastly, my number three wide receiver, the third most underrated wide receiver, it's Rashad Bateman from the Baltimore Ravens. He's wide receiver 75, which is wild. He's their number two wide receiver, and he's getting drafted 75 at average draft pick 167. He had 60 fantasy points last year. Not a great showing, but the team, again, this is why you gotta watch. You gotta watch what teams come out and say. You have to watch what front offices are saying because that's where you find great value. And the Baltimore Ravens front offices come out and said that they want Rashad Bateman to step up, that they know he's going to step up. They think that next year will be a huge step up for Rashad Bateman. They're going to be using him way more. He's the number two guy in that offense behind Zay Flowers. I like Zay Flowers a lot. I think Zay Flowers is great. I think Lamar Jackson's great. He's a great quarterback. We know that. He just won MVP. So why is his number two option getting drafted at wide receiver 75? There's wide receiver threes. There's a ton of wide receiver threes going before Rashad Bateman, and that doesn't make sense to me. When his front office has come out and said that they think this guy's stepping up next year. Easily one of the most underrated guys in the league. I think Rashad Bateman, again, at the very least, doubles his value from last year, at least has 120 fantasy points. I wouldn't be surprised to see him up there in the 140 to 150 range for the season. And for a guy you get at pick 167, that is insane value. So easily taking Rashad Bateman in as many fantasy drafts as I can get him. So yeah, Cortland Sutton, Darnell Mooney, Rashad Bateman, the three most underrated wide receivers in the draft this year. Next up, I'm looking at the most difficult position to find solid underrated players for. It's tight ends. Man, there are some good tight ends in the league. And I know not everyone wants to spend a premium pick on a tight end, but if any year was the year to spend a premium pick on one, it might be this year. Because finding solid, underrated tight ends is pretty difficult, but I got four honorable mentions and one guy that I'm pretty confident in. He has a lot of upside. So let's talk about the honorable mentions quickly. I got first off Ben Sinnott. He's the rookie going to Washington. A lot of untapped potential there, but I just think that he has a lot of upside. I think Jaden Daniels is honestly the guy that I'm most confident in, the most confident rookie quarterback I'm confident in for this next year. I think that Washington is lacking, in kind of the catching department. I like Terry McLaurin. I think Terry McLaurin's great. Jahan Dotson, I think, could take a step up. But behind that, I see Ben Sinnott being their number three easily, possibly their number two if Jahan Dotson doesn't take a step up and Ben Sinnott does. I think Jen Daniels has the capacity to make, Ben Sinnott really valuable as a fantasy pick in this next year. Got Cade Otton from Tampa Bay. Cade just had an impressive showing last year for someone that wasn't really talked about. I didn't see really on many fantasy teams. Got a lot of confidence in Cade. He's been consistent, not the best, but consistent number two option to take. Tyler Conklin, same deal. Playing for the Jets, just really consistent guy. 87 targets 3 years in a row. Funny, and also, hey, good target value for a tight end. Rodgers was out last year, so I think Rodgers comes back. I think Conklin honestly has the best season of his career, and it's coming from a guy who had over 100 fantasy points recently. Not last season, he had 92, but season before he had over 100. I think that Aaron Rodgers comes back. I think he has 110, maybe even 120 fantasy points. I think the Jets need Conklin to step up and be like a solid wide receiver three on for him. And lastly, Jonnu Smith, the Dolphins guy. He had a huge step up last year. He went from about like 30 fantasy points to like 90. Big step up. Playing for the Dolphins. I like Tua. Tua's got a great arm on him. And when Tua stays healthy, Tua is a monster. So, yeah, I think Johnny Smith is in a good position to be a number three pass catcher behind Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Obviously, you got Mostert there as well. You've got Devon Achan there as well. It's a really stacked offense. I don't see Jonnu being, a top 12 wide receiver or tight end, sorry, but he's consistent. He had a big step up last year. I see it happening again. I think he'll be up there. He'll be consistent. He's a really late round pick that you can capitalize on. But the tight end that I'm taking for this team, who I think is possibly the most underrated player, definitely the tight end with the most upside, it's Luke Musgrave. Yeah, Luke Musgrave. He's tight end 17 right now. Average draft pick 150 because he only had 58 fantasy points last year. But he got hurt. He got hurt, and then he was out for a while, the ruptured kidney, and then he was a backup tight end, and or not backup, he was number two, tight end behind Tucker Kraft, and he just never got to really show off how good he can be. He had those first few weeks, but rookies always struggle in their first few weeks. I honestly think Luke Musgrave, going into his sophomore season, has a breakout year. He was good when he was playing. He was really good in those first few weeks, and now we get to see him, you know, past those rookie jitters, past uh, sort of a difficult rookie season, healthy, solid. I like him a lot. I think he could break out. I think he has the most upside, especially with Jordan Levis as quarterback. I think Jaden Reed is locked into being the number one pass catcher in that offense. But that number two position is completely open. The Packers have a lot of good wide receivers, but they don't have anyone that's locked into that number two position. Could be Watson, could be Romeo Dobbs, could be Luke Musgrave. And I'd like to bet on Luke Musgrave stepping up and becoming that pass catcher number two for the Packers. And for that reason, he's my pick for the most underrated tight end in the league this year. Yeah. All right. Last, certainly not least, talking about the flex position. It's one running back, wide receiver, or tight end that I think could really step up, and someone that we haven't talked about previously. Not going to have any honorable mentions here because I already talked about a whole bunch of good running back, wide receiver, and tight end honorable mentions. But the one player that I like a lot, that I watched play, and that I thought was an absolute star, and I see him having a fantastic season next year, and one of the most underrated, possibly the most underrated player in the draft, Demarcus Robinson from the Los Angeles Rams. Man, he's getting drafted wide receiver 76. Average draft pick 171. Insanely low. Why? Well, he only scored 75 fantasy points last year. You're probably thinking 75 fantasy points isn't that much. Yeah, but he really only played like 3 games. I know he was with the Rams the whole season, but as a big Rams fan, as someone who watched every single game, I barely knew who he was until the last 3 games of the regular season. Those last 3 games, Demarcus Robinson stepped up. He started playing, and he was a monster. He wasn't a wide receiver 3. He stepped up and became a wide receiver 2. He was outplaying Cooper Kupp. He was playing on the same level as Puka Nakua. He was a monster, getting multiple touchdowns. I believe he cleared 100 yards in at least one of those games. He was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal in those games. And that's the thing. He was wide receiver 4 for most of the season behind Tutu Atwell. Then Tutu Atwell didn't start those last few games. Marcus Robinson did, and he capitalized on that wide receiver 3 position so much. And the Rams end up signing him again, giving him another 1-year contract, spending a lot of money on him. They clearly like him. His contract ended. He had only had a 1-year contract. They bring him back because they like him, because they see what he's worth, because they see what he did out there, made some of the most insane catches of the entire season. I like him a lot. The man really only played about 3 games, and he was scoring like 20 fantasy points in all of them. You put him in the Rams offense for a full season, there's no telling how high he can go. And I get it. It's likely going to be a wide receiver 3. But for a wide receiver 76, for average draft pick 171, I will gladly take a chance on Demarcus Robinson to keep doing what he was doing in those last few games. He was a wide receiver 3 then. We saw him averaging over 20 fantasy points a game when he was starting. I think he keeps doing it. He was fantastic. I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. I don't see the Rams not giving him opportunities because they clearly like him enough to keep paying him. So, easily securing Demarcus Robinson as the most underrated flex player in the draft. All right, there you have it. The most underrated fantasy team possible for this next year, full of the most underrated players in the league. Hope you guys like the video and all the effort and research that went into it. Definitely the longest video that I've uploaded to this channel so far. I hope you guys like that long form content. But let me know in the comments down below. This is obviously something new for the channel. Been making basketball best bets for a really long time. Still plan on making some of those videos. The WNBA has been difficult to find good bets for because it's very momentum based in my experience, where I like placing bets honestly halfway through a match. I place my bets at halftime. Obviously I can't make videos. I can't I can't, research and record and edit the video for halftime and get it out, unfortunately. But that's why WNBA videos are really hard to make. It's a very momentum based game. Players who do well keep doing well. Players who don't do well don't. Planning on making some videos, some best bets videos for the NBA Summer League. So let me know if you guys would be interested in that. I'm having a lot of luck, a lot of good fortune with that. Not luck, because I'm doing research for it. I'm hitting about 80% of the time for the Summer League. Found really consistent players to bet on. Really like it there. So put out some videos for that. Let me know if you guys want to see those, and let me know what you thought about this. Branching into football, making longer videos, a lot more talking, and a lot more kind of my opinions on players. Obviously, I'm still a stats based guy. I like backing up my opinions and my picks and my stat and my my everything with stats. But this is also just a lot of what I've seen from watching the game. So let me know what you guys think. I appreciate you guys for watching the video. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, especially if you want to come back to this video later on before you do your fantasy draft, so you can remember which guys are really good late round pickups. Like the video as well; that helps out a lot with the channel, with the growth of the channel. And yeah, leave a comment down below. Just let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you want to see summer league videos, if you want to see some NFL full season bets, or some NBA full season bets, or just more fantasy content, or what you guys want to see here. I love talking about sports, love doing stuff with sports. Channel videos aren't going to stop. I'm going to try to be a lot more consistent with them now that my personal life and schedule has simmered down a bit and I have the free time and the consistency to make videos. So, again, I am sorry for videos not coming out as regularly as they used to, but that is going to change now that everything that I've got going on has simmered down and settled out a bit. But that's enough of me yapping for the video. Thank you all again very much for watching. Hope you all learned something. Hope you all have some great fantasy bets, fantasy drafts. Sorry, for this upcoming year. Let me know what players you guys like, and yeah, have a good one.